Hey, Converted Man here. Okay, so today I'm doing the video called Is Islam a Religion of Terror, a response to Donald Trump's and Islamofights everywhere. Even though the opening of the video doesn't say that, that's what they've decided to name their video, I guess so it could get more hits or something. So let's see what their video has to say.
Today's world is home to horrific acts of violence, extremism, and terror of all kinds. Many people directly blame religion, in particular Islam, for much of the violence carried out in its name. But, as a Muslim, I have something to tell you. There is no link between Islam and terrorism.
No, I'm not going to answer the phone because we know that it's outright lie, and I don't want to hear his annoying voice today. So yeah, this isn't true. Of course Islam is linked to terrorism, because you have jihad as a thing in your religion. Now you might say, well, that's not in the Quran or whatever. It's still in your religion, and you kill people when they leave your religion. So, yeah, it is kind of a violent religion that can easily lead to terrorism, and there is a link between the two. And to say that there's not, it's just completely absurd. But I'll retract everything I just said if this guy puts out a logically coherent argument of why the two aren't linked.
Now don't get me wrong, there is obviously a strong link between certain Muslims and terrorism, but Islam is a teaching, and therefore has to be judged on what it actually teaches. So what does the Holy Quran say? Well, in chapter 2, it states that you can never force people in matters of religion. Chapter 5 likens the murder of one innocent life to the murder of the whole of mankind.
But doesn't the Quran also say that the only innocent ones are those that believe in Allah and all that stuff? So couldn't you take that, out of context like you're doing right now and use it in a different way that it's not meant as? And aren't you cherry picking what verses you want to use and ignoring those that say, like, kill the infidels and stuff like this? I don't know the Quran as well as I've forgotten most of the Christian Bible, so I could be wrong. Anyone that knows more about the Quran than I do, post how wrong they are in the comments section below.
Chapter 60 tells Muslims to live in peace with people of other faiths and backgrounds in what it calls kindness and equity. Chapter 109 says that people are free to follow whatever religious beliefs they want. Now these verses, and many more, were carried into action by the Prophet Muhammad of Islam. He lived in peace and harmony with people of many different faiths.
Citation needed? No? No citation? Of course. Why would we get that?
He hated fighting, and the early Muslims only ever fought in direct self-defense.
So if I look at history and find that Islam actually went out and killed a bunch of people and were brutal and stuff like that, then that would totally contradict your point, right? Well, let's just do that. Oh wait, you've got a historian in this video. Well, let's just hear what he has to say.
As historian Reverend De Lacy O'Leary wrote,
"The legend of fanatical Muslims sweeping through the world and forcing Islam at the point of the sword upon conquered races is one of the most fantastically absurd myths that historians have ever repeated."
Oh, I see. I was wrong. So all the other historians are just lying, and this one brave historian is telling the truth. Because I should totally take the word of one historian over, like, all the other historians who he doesn't name by name or anything. So it's like every other historian except for him is saying this thing that's not true. And I'm sure he has tons of evidence to back up his claims, right? Right?
A tiny, tiny fraction of the 1.6 billion Muslims may well be. But why blame Islam for extremism, when extremism and terrorism exists in every ideology?
1.6 billion is a pretty big number, although I've gotten 2 billion for my searching on how many Muslims there are. Let's just call it 1.5 and be done with it. What's a billion between friends, right? So even 1% of a billion, though, is 10 million people. So that's still a lot of people. You said a very small fraction. Well, 1% is pretty small, and that's still a lot of people. How about you give us an actual number? Now, you could even take the real number, whatever it is, and plug it in, and then contrast it with the bigger number. You could say, okay, well, we've got, a billion followers, and of those billion followers, 10 million of them are bad people. And those 10 million are not following the way that we teach this. They're off on some other track. I don't know what they're doing. It's not us. That would display intellectual integrity and honesty. And then you could even make an analogy out of it. You could say, well, let's reduce that to a simple format that we can more grasp easily in our heads for those of us who don't know math like myself, and say, like, okay, if that was 100 people, then it would be however many out of 100 it would be. I don't know because I can't do math. X many people. So that's not that bad. Well, it's still bad, but it's not that bad. Could be worse. Could be 50%. 50% would be bad. Like, really bad, right? But at least it's not 50%. It's less than that. But still, it's still a number that we need to have, that you're not giving us. And I think that should be pointed out.
Do we blame the Gospels for the IRA? Do we blame Buddhism for Buddhist extremists in Burma?
I don't know, but if we don't, we probably should if there is an association causation factor. Like, people that are using that book to justify their actions, like what the ISIS people are doing.
Do we blame atheism for organizations like the League of Militant Atheists, who murdered religious people in Soviet Russia?
See, but the problem there is that atheism describes the group of people of atheists. And that's not a worldview, it's not a religion, it doesn't prescribe anything, it doesn't tell people to do something or tell them not to do something. So yes, a group of people that don't believe in God could get together and decide to kill a bunch of people. I would be against that, but that's not something that we can blame on atheism because it didn't tell them to do anything at all.
And what about eco-terrorism? Or terrorism done by extreme right-wing, left-wing, and separatist groups?
This is kind of apples to oranges here, but yeah, those things might be blamable on the things that they come from if those things that they come from teach a certain ideology that can be linked tangibly to the thing that those people are doing. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. With ISIS, it totally can. Whether you like it or not, they're using the same holy scriptures as you. They're just interpreting them differently, so it doesn't count. Yeah.
The reality is that even in very recent history, a huge part of global terrorism is not motivated by religious ideologies, but by political and social causes.
Which is something that religion plays a part in and of and shaping of. So, nonsense to this. You're really going to kick back and say, well, religion has done this great thing over here. We made this hospital. We helped out these people. But, politics? No, we don't have any say in politics. I mean, you never see people trying to push creationism in the science classroom, right? So when it comes to the politics, that's really what religion's never done anything bad, really. I mean, we're really not responsible for all these terrorist acts, like religion in general. It's just off the hook. Mainly our religion, but other religions too. Let's just get them off the hook, because we don't want religions to be blamed for stuff that, they should be blamed for. Because that would really hurt our narrative.
What this tells us is that extremism isn't the exclusive domain of any ideology, be it religious or secular. There have always been, and perhaps always will be, people who are willing to trample on the rights of others so as to satisfy their own desires.
Or to satisfy the desires of the God that they believe in.
To justify their horrific actions, they have to appeal to the highest authority in their society. In more religious settings, it will be God who is appealed to. In less religious settings, it will be noble ideals like freedom, democracy, and justice. But whatever virtuous ideal is used to justify the murder of innocent lives, we can always discern political, financial, racial, or territorial ambitions at heart.
I really don't think that we can always know what the motivations are, but I agree with some of this. I mean, yeah, there's bad stuff, and we'll always do bad stuff. But you can't just shrug it off and go, well, but everyone else is doing bad stuff. That's too cute.
So, don't fall for it. Religion doesn't create terrorism. People create terrorism.
People create religion. So, if the people that created the religion are now gone, they're dead, gone, then they're not around to blame, so you have to blame the religion. Because the people that made it up are dead, they're gone. Can't blame them anymore, can't stop them, can't do anything about it. Now that it's got its momentum and it's going, you absolutely have to blame the religion. Because what else are you going to blame? The people in that religion that refuse to get rid of the parts of that religion that can lead people to do bad stuff, then you blame that religion. You blame those people. I still blame your religion. This presenter and the people behind this video absolutely would refuse to alter the Quran in any way, shape, or form. I would be willing to bet that they would submit that that book is perfect as is, and that the parts that talk about killing infidels or whatever, I'm just reading that the wrong way. I just don't understand it the right way. But that very fact means that it shouldn't be there. That anyone can misunderstand it means that it's not perfect in some way, shape, or form. But they can't, they won't admit that. Just like Christians won't admit more often than not that their book is flawed. If we got rid of all the bad stuff in the Bible, we'd have a much shorter Bible. You know, get rid of all the 614 commandments that say stone people to death for stupid stuff like wearing mixed fabric or eating shellfish. You know, get rid of all the stuff that's negative that can be used to hurt other people. All the stuff that says boo to homosexuality because that got added in later. It wasn't there originally. It's actually meant something completely different, and we don't understand what it means, and we don't care what it means because we want it to mean what it means. So we've already changed it anyways. Let's just get rid of it. And you get rid of all the bad stuff and all the things that could be seen as bad from your religion, and you have this nice, fluffy, comforting, happy-go-lucky religion where no one can look at anything and take something from that and think that that's meant to do something bad to somebody else. Then, and only then, could I stop blaming your religion for doing bad things. Because the people of the religion refuse to change the religion.
In fact, the true teachings of religion are the solution, not the problem. If those who murder in the name of religions ever truly studied their own teachings, they would drop their guns. And if those who promote terrorism indirectly, through their own injustices, cared about the disorder they would create, then the world would be a very different place indeed.
The problem is the fundamentalists do read the holy books and do try to abide by everything literally in those books. I'm sure there's things that they don't follow either. But by and large, the most scary of people you can encounter are those who really believe in the teachings of the Old Testament as written. If you ever encountered a group of people who were slaughtering animals left, right, up, and down every single day or week or however often they have to do it, and then stoning to death anyone that went against any of the many things that you can go against, I think you would call that barbaric and backwards and inhumane. and perhaps even terrorist. And yet, somebody that really believes that that God is really real and really wrote that book and that they are really supposed to follow it, and if they don't, they'll be subject to that God's wrath, so out of fear they have to do this thing, those fundamentalists are scary precisely because they read the holy books and they do what they're being told to do by the holy books. And it is your fault and people like you that do not insist that the books get rid of the bad and keep only the good. But then I guess we'd have far less religion, far less books. And that is something that you fear a lot. Yes, there would always be some other reason to kill people over that would just be as silly and inane as thinking that a God told you to do it. But it's harder to convince somebody to kill themselves knowing that there's no afterlife than it is to convince somebody to kill themselves where that person believes that there is an afterlife and they'll be rewarded for that suicide bombing. I absolutely continue to be skeptical of your conclusions. Yeah, but only the Muslims are innocent according to the Quran, right? So, pretty sure that's in the Quran. Don't know the Quran as well as I knew the Bible. I say new because I've begun forgetting about what's in the Bible. I've begun forgetting.